Parasurama killed his mother and brothers, but later, by dint of the Parasurama killed his mother and brothers.
What did you say? Mothers and brother. Okay.
Yeah. Let's just pause there for a minute. But later, by dint of the austerities of Jamadagni, they were revived. The sons of Kartavirya, however, remembering the death of their father, wanted to take revenge against Lord Parasurama, and therefore, when Parasurama was absent from the ashram, they killed Jamadagni, who was meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When Parasurama returned to the ashram and saw his father killed, he was very sorry, and after asking his brothers to take care of the dead body, he went out with determination to kill all the Kshatriyas on the surface of the world. Taking up his axe, he went to Mahishmati Pura, the capital of Kartavirya, and killed all of Kartavirya's sons, whose blood became a great river. Parasurama, however, was not satisfied with killing only the sons of Kartavirya. Later, when the Kshatriyas became disturbing, he killed them 21 times so that there were no Kshatriyas on the surface of the earth. Thereafter, Parasurama joined the head of his father to the dead body and performed various sacrifices to please the Supreme Lord. Thus, Jamadagni got life again in his body, and later he was promoted to the higher planetary system known as Saptarshi Mandala. Parasurama, the son of Jamadagni, still lives in Mahendra Parvata. In the next Manvantar, he will become a preacher of Vedic knowledge.
Okay, we can actually stop here. All right, and then let's go to the verse. You can decide that was 18 and 19. Now we can just do one verse, actually, 18. What's the meter for this? Oh, okay. Tadraktena nadim ghora abramanya bhayavaha hetam kitva pitrivadam shatre mangalakarini tadraktena nadim ghora abramanya bhayavaha hetam kitva pitrivadam shatre mangalakarini tadraktena nadim ghora abramanya bhayavaha hetam kitva pitrivadam shatre mangalakarini. Tadraktena nadim ghora abramanya bhayavaha hetam kitva pitrivadam shatre mangalakarini. Tadraktena nadim ghora abramanya bhayavaha hetam kitva pitrivadam shatre mangalakarini. Yes. Christina? Tadraktena nadim ghora abramanya bhayavaha hetam kitva pitrivadam shatre mangalakarini. Let's here. Tadraktena nadim ghora abramanya bhayavaha hetam kitva pitrivadam shatre mangalakarini. Tadraktena nadim ghora abramanya bhayavaha hetam kitva pitrivadam shatre mangalakarini. One more. Look at that. Ghora abramanya bhayavaha hetam kitva pitrivadam Shakre Mangalakarini. You know, try over there. She can't speak. Of all the days I ask her. All right, let's do the word to it together. Tatraktena, by the blood of the sons of Karta Virgin. Nadim Arim. Horam. Yes. All right, let's see the translation together. With the blood of the body of these sons. All right, who'd like to read the purport? All right, she can't. Go ahead.
Parasurama is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and his eternal mission is Paritranaya Sadhunam Vinashaya Chadushkratam, to protect the devotees and annihilate the miscreants. To kill all the sinful men is one among the tasks of the incarnation of Godhead. Lord Parshuram killed all the Kshatriyas 21 times consecutively because they were disobedient to the Brahmanical culture. That the Kshatriyas had killed his father was only a plea. The real fact is that because the Kshatriyas, the ruling class, had become polluted, their position was inauspicious. Brahmanical culture is enjoined in the Shastra, especially in Bhagavad Gita, Chatur Varnyam Maya Srishtam Guna Karma Vibhagasha. According to the laws of nature, whether at the time of Parshuram or at the present, if the government becomes irresponsible and sinful, not caring for Brahmanical culture, there will certainly be an incarnation of God like Parshuram to create a devastation by fire, famine, pestilence, or some other calamity. Whenever the government disrespects the supremacy of the personality of Godhead and fails to protect the institution of Varnashrama Dharma, it will certainly have to face such catastrophes as formerly brought about by Lord Parshuram.
All right. So yeah, in this chapter, there's just so much in there. There's two main things I wanted to focus on. One was that incident with Janmadagni's wife Renuka. So she's at this pond or lake, or no, from the Ganges. Okay, she was at the Ganges. She's collecting water for a sacrifice her husband was doing. And yeah, she sees this Gandharva who's enjoying the company of other Apsaras. Apsaras are like heavenly damsels, and so so she gets enamored and she gets captivated by that. Gandharva is also like a heavenly being, and so she gets captivated in just in her mind for like a brief time. But when she gets back, I guess she's slightly delayed. And Janmadagni, through his mystic powers, he knows what happened. And so his reaction was like way more than the incident deserved. I was wondering, has anyone ever been in a situation where either they have overreacted or somebody else has overreacted to something you've done? Has that ever happened to you? Yeah, well, what does it feel like when somebody overreacts to something you've done? Mike.
It feels like the person who overreacted has a personal issue themselves.
Yeah, either with you or with something else, right? Yeah, there's something going on. Yeah, what else? How does it feel when somebody overreacts to something small? Unjustified, yeah.
It's very surprising, and it kind of undermines your trust in the person, because then you're thinking that they didn't react in a rational way.
Yeah.
You know, so like if they're going to be irrational, then they could just do any crazy thing at any time in response to anything that you do.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. It's shocking. Yeah. The mic not working, not shocking. Okay. But then why does it feel like when we ourselves overreact to something? How do you feel? Did you have anything there? No. How do you feel later? So stupid. Yeah, I just feel like, oh my God, I totally overreacted. What was I thinking? Yeah. And any other thoughts? Yes, ma'am.
I usually try to reflect, like, why did I react so
Yeah.
strongly to that? Like, it wasn't just that, like, what
Yeah.
else was it? Or what is it in me that it triggered, you know, like it's
Yeah.
triggering something.
Yeah, oftentimes there's always something else that, we're dealing with that gets triggered by something else. But yeah, sometimes like, oh, Prabhu, could you pass me the math? And I'm like, what the heck? How could you ask me? Like, what happened? And then I guess there's some math trauma or something from way back. But yeah, it's just like people can have so many issues, within themselves, and then they overreact. But yeah, but then, and then yeah, reflection can be like in general for everybody. When we see somebody else is overreacting, like one can also have the mood like, oh, this, how come not just like this person's overreacting, but is there something Krishna's trying to tell me in this situation, that I'm facing this right now? So one can have self-reaction. Not that we just like, oh, this guy got some personal issues, and that's why, and I'm always right, and this person has issues. But also like, okay, well, all right, this has somehow come across my path, and sure, that person might have some issues, but also like, how is it that I'm put in this situation, and what can I do to self-reflect and so forth. But yeah, I guess overall point being, self-reflection is always good on either sides, from our own perspective. Or like Vidura, when Vidura was insulted by Duryodhana, and what's his name? Dhritarashtra. And but specifically by Duryodhana, that Duryodhana said, you're just the son of a maidservant. And Vidura was the prime minister. He was, and of course he was Duryodhana's uncle. And so yeah, he just took that insult as a sign from Krishna. Okay, this is it. It's a sign from God. I need to like leave now. This is it. So and of course Duryodhana was in the wrong. There's no doubt. But yeah, as a devotee, he just. But yeah, in this case, yes, Prakash.
Sorry to interrupt. I was thinking as you were speaking that when these things happen, it's an opportunity to think like, what if you have a relationship with somebody and they overreact, it's like, which one of their needs was not met in this interaction? Like which one of their needs was kind of neglected, whether it's confidentiality or respect or whatever it is that person's needs are not being met, that'll trigger that.
That's a good point. Yeah. In that case, like you can be the bigger person and think more about their needs. Yeah, that's where some Vaishnava like, and like Kevin, Vaishnava. But yeah, in Jamadagni's case, yeah, he overreacted, and then he asked his sons, not Parasurama, the other sons, to kill their mother, and they were like, no. We're not going to kill our mother. And then Parasurama came, and Jamadagni then asked him, like, kill the brothers because they disobeyed the order, and then kill the mother as well. And Nine Kanto is full of interesting pastimes. And Yeah, I know. And so Parshuram at that point was like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And so Parshuram went ahead, killed the brothers and also the mother. But he knew that at that point, then Janmadagni asked, he said, like, okay, what boon do you want? And so at that point, he knew, because beforehand he had known that Janmadagni has the power to revive them. And so then he asked him for the brothers and the mother to be revived. And that's the only reason really why he followed the instruction, because he knew they could be brought back. But it's an interesting pastime. He didn't want to disobey the father, but he knew that he had the powers to bring them back. And then later, when the sons of Kartavirya Arjuna came, and they just, in revenge for their father's death, they killed Janmadagni. And then the purport Prabhupada mentions that because Janmadagni had reacted so strongly and heavily against Renuka, that's why he got that reaction. And so, in general, we want to be careful also in relationships in general, like not to overreact and be really heavy on somebody, on something small. And even if it happens, when one can reflect and apologize and so forth. But in this case, with Janmadagni, the reaction was severe, and he got killed himself. And especially in a male-female relationship, in a husband-wife relationship, the husband doesn't have. Because sometimes in ISKCON, this pastime was like, she was slightly unchaste in her mind, and the husband got to really be heavy, So sometimes this pastime is misused for that purpose. And so, but they don't talk about how Janmadagni later got a heavy reaction, got killed. They skipped that part. They're like, this pastime can't be used like, the husband can just chastise the spouse, the wife for any small error, whatever it is. And of course, it kind of goes both ways. Neither party should, but especially in this case, the husband can't just act all entitled and be like, you were the wife and I can just correct you, whatever it is. And because especially when a woman is insulted, be a wife or anyone else, then normally there is a heavy reaction. There always is, because I was just reflecting about how women are considered like expansions of fortune of goddess, the expansion of Radharani. And so in that sense, when women are insulted or mistreated or abused and so forth, then there's always some kind of calamity. There's always a loss of prosperity. There's always, Lakshmi just leaves that place, there's always something that goes wrong. And I was thinking about how in the assembly of the Kauravas, when Draupadi was insulted, like heavily insulted, and she was just, she was dragged by her hair, and she was not in a presentable condition. Imagine if you are not in a presentable condition, like you just wearing just, whatever, it wasn't even like a bot, was that? Your pajamas. Yeah, pajamas, or some, she was basically, it was that time of the month, and so she had only one single piece of cloth, and her hair wasn't tied, and in those times, the women just would be kind of more secluded in the chambers at that time of the month, and then she told them, like, I can't come to the, and it's not just any assembly, it's the assembly of the Kauravas, where all the kings from various places are there, and then like all the Kurus, sorry, not the assembly of Kauravas, assembly of the Kurus, all the Kurus are there. And she's like, no way, I'm not gonna go there. I'm not even supposed to step out of this chamber. I'm supposed to be in seclusion. So what to talk of being in an assembly? So imagine being in a state where you're not presentable, and you just get dragged by your hair to some big assembly somewhere. It's really humiliating. And so they did that to her, and they dragged her, and then they tried to strip her naked on the instruction of Duryodhana. And Duryodhana patted his thighs, and he told the Shasana, bring her here, I'll have her sit on my thighs. And it was just so heavy. And because of that, the whole Kaurava dynasty was destroyed in a matter of time. And so we see time and again, and whenever women are abused, then there's a really heavy reaction. Might not come right then, but it just in due course of time. And in that assembly, when she was Kshatriya too. She was trying to fight the Shasana. This other warrior was trying to just strip her naked. And at one point she just gave up and just raised her arm, and she was like, "Hey, Govinda." And so at that point, Krishna just gave her ultimate amount of cloth. So just Dushasana couldn't disrobe her at all, and he's actually just collapsed collapsed because he was so tired of pulling the cloth. And at that point, Bhima stood up and he took a vow. He said, "I take a vow to kill all the Kauravas." Did he say all the Kauravas specifically? Yeah, he did. 100 sons of Dhritarashtra. And he took a vow to kill Duryodhana and rip his thighs, because he said, "I'll make her sit on my thighs." And so I take a vow to tear the chest of the Dushasana. I was disrobing her, and with that blood, she can bathe her hair, and then she will tie her hair. Like the Kshatriyas, and like Kshatriyas are men of honor, people of honor and word and strength and of principle, and they have to have that because they uphold that Brahminical culture. As we see, that they talk about how the Kshatriya class went downhill. They have to have that intensity because they have to protect. They have to make sure that the Brahmanas are protected. Brahmanas don't fight. They just talk about justice and then go to sleep. And they talk about theory, They talk about theory, basically, what's wrong, what's right. And they don't have, their duty is not to implement, or they might not even have the strength. Well, they actually do have the strength, but they, in terms of, they can have the strength to implement it, but they generally don't. It's the Kshatriyas who do it. In any case, when Bhima, he said those words, everybody was shocked. And it's described in the Mahabharata that everybody was shocked because it was just like a dagger that had thrown at the Kauravas, and it was only a matter of time. When he spoke those words, it was just like an arrow or dagger that was thrown at them, and it was just a matter of time when the dagger was just gonna kill them, basically. So yeah, that's the role of the Kshatriyas, to protect. And so in this case, the Kshatriyas, instead of protecting, they actually killed the Brahmana, which is it's a severe offense. Like it's like when somebody's supposed to protect somebody, often the case we see, like when, say, a parent is supposed to protect a child and the parent ends up abusing, then people like what they really get upset with those kind of people. So it's kind of like that also. The Kshatriya is supposed to protect the Brahmanas, but then they go ahead, and in this case, they went ahead and killed the Brahmana. And Kartavirya was at fault anyways back then. But so Parasurama was really upset, and then he just went ahead and killed all the ruling class 21 times. Whenever those who are supposed to be protected, whenever they are abused or taken advantage of, then there's always a heavy reaction. That's true.
I was just thinking that it was kind of fair because, in Vedic culture, the husband is supposed to protect the wife. So he was the person who was supposed to protect his wife, and he was the one who had her killed. So the very people that were supposed to protect him also killed him.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's kind of like tit for tat.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically law of karma, tit for tat. in a few words. But so that's the whole thing with when in the Mahabharata also, when there was this one time when Yudhishthira, he was in his chambers and Bhima was standing outside, and this one person came and he said, "Oh, I have these problems and I have to talk to King Yudhishthira." And Bhima said, "No, you can't go talk to him." He said, "No, do not disturb me." And so that person then started, Bhima said, "Okay, tell me your problems." So I don't think I can remember all of them. So the first one he said was that I have this fence around this property. And then he said, but then the fence itself keeps encroaching on the property. That was the first one. And the other one was there was a pot. So he said, I put water in this pot. No, there's a pot, a big pot of water, and I put water from the big pot in small pots. But then when I put the water back in the main pot, the water is less than what I poured out. Those are two. And then what was the other anomaly? Does anyone remember? There was one more. Let me think for a second. But do you remember, Prabhupada? I can't remember now. These are the two ones. There was one more anomaly, and then he said that there was, oh geez, I'm sorry, I actually just came to, yeah, there's an elephant involved. That was the good one. The good one was that there was a mountain. There was a I wish I can remember. Yeah, if you could look it up. It's that something to the effect that the elephant couldn't. I can't remember. Anyways, and so
there was something that the elephant couldn't.
yeah.
What the elephant couldn't do, but some small animal.
Yeah, something of that sort. An elephant couldn't move it, but this small animal then was able to do it. And of course there was a fourth anomaly. But yeah, at that point, so when the Bhima actually went, and then later Yudhishthira Maharaj came out, and Bhima started telling them these anomalies, the fence encroaching, the pots, the water in the pot thing, and then the other two things. And at that point, Yudhishthira Maharaj, he just really got, he just got really disturbed, and he said, "Where is this man? Show him to me." I guess he said, because I want to kill him. He said it's Kali personified. So that fence that encroaches on the property itself is like the Kshatriyas, who they're supposed to protect the society, but instead they're encroaching. Did you find, bro? Yeah. They're encroaching. And then the water, so the main part is are the parents. And so the parents, they give water, to the kids, the little pots. But then when the time comes for the kids to give the water back, it's not the same amount of water. So they don't give back as much. Yeah. And then the good one was, yes, bro. Yes, the mic.
It says that a big elephant is passing through a needle, but surprisingly its tail gets stuck in the hole.
Oh yeah. So that one was that was a bad one also, that somebody who has a lot of resources, they can get away with any crime in Kali Yuga. But then but if you don't have much resource, then your tail gets, if you're poor, you can't get away with anything. You'll be punished heavily, which is true in Kali Yuga, And then the fourth one, the good one. There was a big rock in the street, and big personalities are not able to move, but a sadhu came, and by waving his sannyas danda, it moved. Okay, yeah. So that one, I believe, is with the holy name, right? Is there an explanation for that?
It says it did not move by the persons who are not having a lot of strength, but sadhu moved, which means that one can get rid of all their unlimited sins just by performing Nama Sankirtan.
Yeah. So yeah, one in Kali Yuga, those other yagyas, other things, Mystic Yoga, all those other things don't work really. But one who chants the holy name can get rid of as much sin as they've committed. So yeah, so in Kali Yuga, those who are supposed to protect, they often don't. Instead, they actually take advantage. And so yeah, as devotees, it's like we have to behave in such a manner that we're kind of reversing those. We have to do the opposite of those three things, where we actually take care of people more than they take care of us necessarily. And then we do protect the people we're supposed to protect. And and the third one, I guess we're just more just and fair, and not just we give benefits to people who give a large donation or something. But yeah, and of course, the fourth one, we chant the holy name. And yeah, I was just reflecting on the pastime with the Kshatriyas, and I was thinking how Parasurama, well, he was killing Kshatriyas left and right. So it's like, okay, well, what do we do in today's age, And then there's the purport itself. It was interesting. Prabhupada mentioned about how there's calamities. There's calamities when the ruling class is not God conscious, or if the ruling class is disregarding the personality of God, then there's always famine, pestilence, or some other calamity. And if you look around the world, there's always something going on. There's always a forest fire in California, or there's always something going on. And India also is for so long. There's always floods. There's earthquakes, and I mean pretty much everywhere, all over the world, there's something or other going on. And so these are normally a sign that that Krishna is being just ignored, basically, and not just ignored, but actually there's disrespect to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So whenever the administration itself acts against worship of Krishna, then there's just a natural reaction through these calamities. And so for us also, whenever there's a calamity in our life, we want to see, okay, any kind of calamity, we want to see, okay, this is a sign for some sort of course correction. There's something in my life that in some way I'm ignoring Krishna or his devotees, or I'm doing something off. And that's why this calamity, in one sense, so-called calamity, has come towards me. So what is it that I need to work on? So for us, we could reflect that way, like, that's why, why did this calamity come? And it's not like, oftentimes the material mindset is, this happened because such and such person did this, or such and such incident happened, or so forth. That's the material calculation. And of course, I guess one can be practical about things. But also, if you look spiritually, like, all right, what is it, like, how is it in my life that if not just necessarily disrespecting Krishna, or I'm just ignorant of Krishna in my life. And the more we are ignorant of Krishna, the more we're going to be involved with the material energy, and more there'll just be calamities. I mean, I feel like material life is just one calamity after another. And then one day there's no calamity, and then there's that day is like, oh, I'm so happy today, yay. And that's basically, but I don't know. I hope I'm not exaggerating, but that's how I feel though. It's because I remember before I was Krishna conscious, I remember thinking like, all right, nothing bad happened today. I'm like, oh, thank God. And that's how I remember feeling. But anyone else can correct me about the glories of material life. But before one's God conscious, and it's just so different. It's funny because like you don't even have to do much. You just have to eat some prasadam and chant a little Hare Krishna. And there's just there's some auspiciousness and happiness in our lives. And that thick covering of distress and happiness and distress kind of just starts going away. And it's a different kind of happiness that one starts feeling. But whenever calamities come, we have to self-reflect, like, all right, what is it that Krishna is hinting at? And when Srila Prabhupada, when he was distributing books in Delhi, this is like in the 50s or early 60s. Yeah, he was like out in the streets of Delhi. He was printing his pamphlets, the Bhakti Godhead pamphlets in Vrindavan. Oh, actually, at that point he was doing it in Delhi, I think. But then, he would just go on the streets in Delhi, and it was really hot. And one day this bull just came and just charged at him. And later Prabhupada was reflecting, like, what happened? Like, I'm trying to serve Krishna with everything I have, and like what it was more like what's going on, for him. And he wasn't really questioning why did Krishna do this. It's just he was just so bewildered. And I was thinking that even when devotees might seem bewildered, if they're still attached to Krishna, they still keep doing this service, then there's no harm really. There's no derailment from Krishna consciousness. So there might be some bewilderment, but the devotee can still depend on Krishna and just keep pushing on. But yeah. Any thoughts or comments before we go ahead? All right. Well, one thing I was thinking of asking all of you. So the purport, the verse itself, it's talking about Brahminical culture. And the summary also talks about Brahminical culture. So I was going to ask you, what are some of the symptoms, or what are some features of Brahminical culture? What are some, what does it look like? Or Brahmanas, I mean, there's Brahmanas, a priestly class. And so what in a society, It could also be related with the mode of goodness, Brahminical culture is normally more in the mode of goodness. What are some features? Let's go ahead.
Yeah.
Here's Mike.
Chuck. The structures are supposed to, they're supposed to make sure everyone has the proper occupation and has all the necessities they need, proper food and shelter and everything like that. And there's also a big book on Catholicism, and that's one of the things they say in there also. And I took a course in U.S. national government one time, and they did a survey of how many people think that's the priority of the government. That the people should, and it was like 25%.
Only 25%.
Only 25% thought that should be the job of the government at all.
Wow.
The rest of them is just claw your way to the top.
And what else? What else are some symptoms of Brahminical culture?
In contemporary times, we could say the administrators of states take consult, maybe Brahmanas, or if not typical Brahmanas, then those who have the qualities of Brahmanas, they don't act whimsically.
Yeah. Yes, Christina, and then probably. Like oftentimes, even the US, I believe that they would have just like not chaplains or priests, but there's a position, I believe, I can't remember, but it's normally there's a chaplain, advisor, but they sometimes consult.
Brahminical culture helps people uphold dharma, so that's says austerity, cleanliness, truthfulness, and compassion.
Yeah, probably.
Well, one thing about Brahminical culture is that there would be a high value on education, especially like Shastric education and character development of the people in general.
Yeah. What else? Anything else that comes up? Brahminical culture, especially in modern times. Yeah, it's cow protection. Yeah, of course, it's protection of all entities, but specifically cow protection. Yeah, comes up. But yeah, there's so many good things that come along with Brahminical culture if it's actually established. And it could be established by the state, but also in our own lives or in our own communities, we can strive to have some Brahminical culture where Varnashram is kind of in place where basically people, whatever the nature is, they're able to pursue that and do what they would like to do and do it in service to Krishna. And yeah, there's some intellectuals who give knowledge, there's some Kshatriyas who manage and so forth. There's some Vaishyas who kind of, they grow things or they produce, from the land and more like merchants. And then there's some Shudras who just, Shudras normally they give a lot of support. They do a lot of things. And so one has to make sure there's different kinds of people and they're engaged and according to their nature for the most part, and that they're supported in what they're doing. And what else was there? There's the education, right? Yeah, and then there's a heavy emphasis on education, people being educated and being able to think on their own a little bit. And if they can't think on their own, then they find somebody else who can think on their own. But yeah, there's education and also education in God consciousness. Yeah. And there was advisors. Yeah, the kings have advisors and so forth. What did you say, Christina?
Upholding dharma.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, upholding dharma. Like imagine a society where, these principles of cleanliness, truthfulness, mercy, and austerity are upheld. Oh, austerity, that might be stretched for the US, but at least cleanliness, truthfulness, and mercy. And yeah, discipline. Yeah, at least some kind of discipline, and not just everybody's just totally pampered or or whatever else, or they just can't control their minds and they can't do anything. Yes, yeah, a society where people can't control their mind and can't actually achieve something is just probably will be a very hellish society. And for these very practical reasons, actually, Brahminical culture is so important to maintain. And yeah, the more the society is in the mode of goodness, Mode of goodness basically means just knowing the truth, and acting on what's good for not just ourselves but also for others. And so, yeah, the more societies in mode of goodness, the more there'll be more model citizens, really. And so that's why it's so important for Kshatriyas to be able to maintain Brahminical culture. But yeah, in today's age in Kali Yuga, it's described in the Bhagavatam that there's only one last leg of Dharma left, of truthfulness, which is like barely standing, And it's even surprising that it's even says that, because there's hardly any truth left in today's age, but it's a little bit, it's there. That's the last leg of Dharma. But yeah, as devotees, we try to uphold those four pillars of Dharma: mercy, cleanliness, austerity, and truthfulness. Yeah. And yeah, that's why Parasurama was just so intense about it. It's like, government, do a revolution, go kill all the Kshatriyas. Karan's gonna kill all the Kshatriyas. Yeah. What do you think? What do you think we can do in today's age? Be Brahmin ourselves. Yeah. That's
Bring change in our own microenvironments. At least.
Yeah. What else? Yeah, go with Jennifer.
If we basically just follow Srila Prabhupada's instructions and vision to keep building ISKCON in the direction that he had in mind, then we would be establishing Brahminical culture. If we keep doing what the PI does, for example, showing our strength of intellect and how Shastra makes sense. If we establish farms so that there's basically a harmonious alternative to modern culture. And of course, if we keep having temples where, as we said, Dharma is upheld and Shastric knowledge is disseminated, basically just need to keep doing exactly what Prabhupada asked us to do.
Yeah, we show by example. We have to show by example. And that's why it's so important that even within ISKCON, we have to show by example. And we can't just have this attitude, well, we have the highest philosophy, but our character or our how we behave is just like really not that great. Like you actually have to implement the philosophy and show it in an example. What else, Christine? Mike?
To extend that a little bit, we should all try to become guru, because if you have, if everybody becomes guru, and then everybody, and then if you're a really qualified guru, then you'll naturally attract disciples, like people who want to take instruction from you, and then that kind of exponentially extends the influence across society. And if you also look at the example of, for example, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, how he was so influential. I mean, we may not have seen it necessarily directly, like us in the younger generation, but he advised so many world leaders, and he was given so many honors, and did so much in terms of like at the high level, and also like practical, prison reforms and that kind of thing. He's a really amazing example of what one person can do if they have that empowerment.
Yeah, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was so glorious. He counseled Nelson Mandela, and when he met Nelson Mandela, Nelson Mandela actually said that he knows the Sanskrit of the Bhagavad Gita, the verses. He knew like a lot of them, or maybe even all of them. And so they asked him, how do you know them? So he said, yeah, in prison. When he was in prison, the guards were really trying to kind of like dumb him down. Like they weren't giving him any activity that would keep his mind sharp. So to keep his mind sharp, actually, I don't know, somehow I think he got about Gita, so he started memorizing all the verses. He kept memorizing, and it kept him alert, actually, all those years. He was in prison for a long time. And yeah, just with Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. And then there's another one where I think he just showed up at, was that boxer Mike Tyson or one of those. He just showed up at their house and he just started preaching to them, It showed up at his gate. And yeah, Bhaktivedanta Maharaj is just so glorious, and that's such a good example of a Brahmana intellectual who just goes out and preaches and shares Krishna consciousness. And when he left his body, Washington D.C. mayor, they have one day that's dedicated actually on him. There's a little plaque on Maharaj's desk at the institute in D.C. that says like, you know, certain day, maybe it's his birthday or something. It's called the Bhaktivedanta Swami Day or something. But yeah, it's just so powerful when devotees go out and yeah, and then just by sharing Krishna consciousness, automatically they're gurus, you know. Yeah.
About Nelson Mandela, there was an article in Back to Godhead. He attended a Rath Yatra one time, and he said it was the happiest day of his life. So that's how we're going to change the world, one herd at a time.
Yeah, it's just it's such a good point. Like, yeah, as gurus, you know, you just as devotees, yeah, we do need to go out, you know, in one way or other, we just go out and share Krishna consciousness in the best possible manner with everybody. And you know, some of us maybe preachers, some are not necessarily preachers, and maybe don't like to talk to people or give classes or whatever. But some endeavor to share Krishna. You know, we can always just chant, so that's simple enough. So, but some endeavor to just share Krishna with others, that's really, and yeah, you know, it's like it's really a grassroots movement. But it's one person can make so much of a difference. And it all really counts, even if we just make a difference in this one person's life. You know, it's actually, Bhaktisiddhanta said that. I mean, Prabhupada said that. Prabhupada said it actually. He said one person, saving one person's life is worth millions of dollars for me. You know, and so it is so much value in just helping just even one person in Krishna consciousness. So yeah, as devotees, yeah, we do want to go out and share Krishna consciousness as much as we can. And that is really what will push on this Brahminical culture in today's society. Is, to be honest, everybody out there is really suffering. They're all going through their various good and bad actions, their karma, and everybody, especially today, there's all kinds of traumas, all kinds of abuse, and there's just so much out there. And as devotees, devotees are the most magnificent, you know, like how Advaita Acharya was calling out Krishna, like he's like, this is just too much. Everyone's in such deep suffering. You have to come personally. So we can also pray like that every day, like, Krishna, please appear, please descend, you know, as we chant, you know, we call on to Krishna, like, please be here in people's hearts, and in their hearts, just relieve them of all this misery and darkness, really. And yes, we can, that's what it means to be the representatives of these various acharyas in our lines, to imbibe that mood of mercy and compassion, and just going out there. It really is a war, you know, like soldier out there, you know, but our weapon is the holy name. Our weapon is book. Prabhupada said, drop the books like bombs. It really is a war. Because yeah, and then everybody is really suffering. There's so much just ignorance in people's hearts, and they're suffering because of that. So yeah, the more we push on, the more there'll be more of goodness, there'll be more Brahminical culture, there'll be more mercy, truthfulness. And that's the thing, you know, people, they think it's just their philosophy, and they share the philosophy, they're proselytizing. But actually, like, no, this is the torchlight of knowledge that devotees are sharing with people to dispel the darkness and ignorance in this world, you see. And so, yeah, anyways, probably. You got a point? No? Kevin?
Very well. Yeah, thank you for the wonderful discussion. Something that came up was that on this topic of protection, if we're protecting our own and our community, they feel protected, then naturally they're gonna, as they go on, have that experience and protect others in the same way that hurt people, they hurt other people, and people that are protected are gonna feel the power of that shelter and want to give it to everyone else. And just like that, just whenever the opportunity to protect one person comes up, if we step up and do it, I would say with counsel, with training, because we may have a misunderstanding of what protection is. So when these situations come up, if we go to our mentors and say, well, what can we do? How can we protect accordingly in this situation? Unless obviously we need to act in the moment, then, you know, Krishna will be guiding us in the heart. But the power of just stepping up to these situations, and if I've also been a victim and I freeze, then at the very least, like, get somebody who can do something in these situations. Because if that person feels protected, then when they come across somebody else who's in danger or who's a victim, then they can do something about it. They have that experience, and then like that will just like keep rippling to every other person that gets affected by some kind of victimization.
All right, hold on. Anything else? All right, you can stop here. Go